In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America. Welcome to a special edition of the Corporate Couch. These episodes will be more of a love seat that focuses on one topic and will run 15 to 30 minutes. For each special edition episode, you will hear from one or more outstanding leaders sharing their expertise on the most important challenges in corporate America today. Welcome to another special edition of the Corporate Couch today. I'm very excited because I have the first ever guest that sat on the Corporate Couch with me, the legendary Harry Campbell. Harry, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jeff.
Harry's been great. He's had a big influence on me and my leadership style. We met back in 92, I think, when he came from Walmart P&G team down in Bentonville and joined Sprint, and that changed his life and my life. So here we are. So thanks, Harry, for coming on again. You're one of the few in the two-timer club for the Corporate Couch. I haven't had many guests that have appeared twice, but now you're one of them. It's going to be like the SNL hosting. You know, when you have 5 appearances or more, you're in that 5 club or whatever they call it. So very excited to talk about a very critical topic in today's world, caregiving. The oldest baby boomers are now 89 years old, believe it or not. And there's 11 to 12,000 people in the U.S. today that turn 65. So whether you're caring for an aging partner or parents, I mean, it's out there. And I'll let you tell the story in terms of how you got here. But you're really focusing on kind of the mindset for caregivers and how to help people in that regard. So maybe talk a little bit how you pivoted and what kind of framework are you using for your approach to caregiving?
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. Probably the most important thing to realize is that I didn't plan to be in the situation I'm in with my family, with my wife and our kids, but we are where we are. I did have a successful business career. I ended up writing 3 books, one on culture, one on leadership, and one on mindset. And it turns out that the third one, the one on mindset, Get Real Mindset, really played a very important role in how I became a caregiver. My wife, about a year after we were married, was diagnosed with a malignant inoperable brain tumor. That's the kind of thing that buckles your knees, and you'll never forget where you are when you get that phone call. And that happened. So at that point, I became a caregiver. The crazy part about it is, despite the diagnosis and some less than pleasant potential outcomes from the doctors, my wife, Chris, was asymptomatic for 16 years. Some people, not us, but some people forgot she was even sick because she had this tumor inside her head, but it wasn't affecting her. Alas, in the last 4 years, maybe 5, something like that, she's had an effect that's come about, which is the brain radiation she had to shrink the tumor back in 2004, left scar tissue on her brain and in her brain, and that's affecting her mobility. She has pretty significant tremors, and she has a tough time getting around. So we've gone from asymptomatic to she needs a lot of help. That's not fair. She can be independent, but she's very slow and has trouble and occasionally has big-time balance issues. But the bottom line is things are very different than they ever were, and they're only going to be different going forward more and more as we go through this. The book that I wrote that I talked about originally, Get Real Mindset, talked about a framework on how to deal with unexpected issues or problems in particular and how you can deal with them very well in order to try to get past them, get around them, or maybe even win versus them. What I decided to do was that kind of same framework that I put in place for the business world and I do keynote speeches on, I was going to use in this situation with our family and with my wife's sickness. And so we do. It's 3 stages and it's very simple. What you do is you have to absorb. In other words, whatever happened, you have to come to reality, come to grips with it. You can complain all you want. You can crawl into your desk and put your thumb in your mouth, but you got about 10 minutes of that, and then you got to get out and say, okay, what's next? Because everything has changed. You have to absorb. The second thing you have to do is assess, as in how much has changed, what's different. As I said, the first 16 years that my wife had this diagnosis, there was nothing asymptomatic, but the last 4 has been very different. So you have to assess, because what you're going to do and what you're going to put into place is about what's happening at that moment. And then the third one is adjust. And you have to put the plan in place and say, we're not looking back, we're going forward. So absorb, assess, adjust is what I talk about in business, trying to be successful. But I also talk about it with regard to my caregiving and the health issues of our family.
Yeah. Yeah. And just because I know the story, I mean, and Chris, your wife was only supposed to not live past 3 years too in that original diagnosis back in 2004, correct?
It was more, she was given about 10 to 12. So it was a pretty decent time frame, but still she was in her early 30s. So that didn't look like much time frame from our standpoint.
Right. Yeah. Harry, what do you think is the most single thing to remember as you take the caregiver journey?
I keep coming back to this, and I'm going to say it, and it sounds simplistic, but it's very fair. You have to remember that everything has changed. The world is not going to be as you knew it. Your relationships, your activities, your priorities, your family, everything has changed. And the more you recognize that, that really helps you get beyond it. And the second piece as a corollary to that is everything is fluid, because while everything has changed and you can set plans in place today for what today is like, everything is fluid. And so in the next week, 2 weeks, 1 year, things could change dramatically again. I call that the crookedness of life. Life comes at you, and sometimes it gives you twists and turns. And I say crookedness, I'm not talking about integrity. I'm talking about the crookedness and the craziness of the happenings of life. So you need to understand everything has changed, but everything is fluid also.
Yeah, it's kind of almost that, stoic approach, news is not good or bad. It's just news, right? And so you have to deal with that. And I mean, I can't imagine a loved one, a spouse or partner having that at such an early age. Harry, if you were going to kind of say, what are the kind of best attributes or traits somebody can have to be a great caregiver, what would that be?
Oh, I love this because it's so real. 3 things that I would say that come to mind when you ask that question. Empathy. And by the way, all 3 of these that I give and I talk about are 2-way paths. They're from me to my wife to me. It's not just as a caregiver, this is what you need. So you need empathy. And when I say empathy, you really truly have to empathize and say, wow, what are you going through? If you're talking about me as a caregiver, and I have to have that empathy because things are so different. And it's easy to kind of wallow in the problems and the issues you face, but get over it. So you got to have empathy. The second one is resilience. I love resilience. I'll call it grit. Doesn't matter what the word is. And I love meeting people like that. I love working with them, and I love driving business with them. At the same time, it fits into the caregiver world also. You got to have resilience because today could be very different than yesterday. And it may call on all of the faculties and strength and faith you have in order to get through the next week or 2 or 10 minutes. So I look at this and I say empathy is important, but so is resilience to be able to bounce back and, if you have to, chart a new path forward. And then the third one is optimism. This is a very important one. You can't be too optimistic. You can't be Pollyannish. What you have to do is you have to accept the reality. But if you're optimistic, there's plenty of statistically significant research that's been done that shows that if people are optimistic, they're more likely to have better outcomes. Will it be true in our circumstance? Maybe not. But first of all, it's a more joyful way to live. And second of all, it's more likely that something good can come out of it. So the three things that I look at as a caregiver, and I try to model, and Chris and I talk about these things. So there's three things. One of them is empathy, resilience, and optimism.
Talk about, once this process started for you in around 2020, Babe Ruth had a good year that year in 20. When it started for Chris, when you became a caregiver, what were your biggest challenges, and does that apply to not only you, but what are the challenges for other people? Because obviously you're an optimistic person and a people person and all about relationships.
Wow, that's a very real question. I've got an answer for it, but I have to kind of brace myself before I talk about it because going through it was very hard. Probably the simplest thing that I can say that I had to battle with internally was why me or why us? And I wasn't even the one that was sick, but the why me, why us? We've got a plan. We've got kids. We love to travel. We love to go to sporting events. We love to go to cultural events. We love to visit friends. We love to go on vacations. And I was doing very well. We had the opportunity to do a lot of things. And now you're put in a position that is all changed. And the why me, why us thing is very, very real. And I got to the point where I would start to talk to myself a lot. I do self-talk in order to get out of the bad situations I'm in occasionally mentally. And I really had to do it because the why me, why us thing comes spinning at you very fast. Another one, I'm going to call it FOMO because, and it's very related, of course, to the first one I talked about, which was the why me. FOMO means, to me, in this instance, the fear of missing out. Wow. If it wasn't for this tumor and the disease that my wife has, what would we be doing? What could we have done? Could we have treated ourselves to a cool wedding anniversary gift and gone on a trip? Could we have done something with the family? Could we? And you get yourself in this position of FOMO and looking at other people, which is very normal anyway, not just having someone in the family that has a brain tumor, there's sickness. But FOMO happens to everybody, but it comes screaming at you hard in this instance, Jeff. It's brutal. The third piece here is the exact opposite, 180 degrees of what I talked about previously about optimism. It's pessimism. So I had the why me, why us. I had the FOMO, and I had the pessimism. And all those are things that I use self-talk to kind of make sure they stayed under the surface and didn't take over my mental capacities or my relationships or my communication, because you have to make sure you don't do that. It's hard. In fact, it's brutal. And I will tell you, I was good at it sometimes and not at others. But at the end of the day, it's still very important to keep that focus, because sometimes the why me, why us can take over. And at that point, all that does is, from my standpoint, it looks a lot like a downer and a depression and a mode and a mood that's not good for anybody, particularly me and my wife.
Harry, I don't know about if you were still the CEO of Dury Vision during this time, this caregiving time, but any advice, both as, were the caregivers, still working, obviously has those obligations, as well as the parenting piece, right? Because you had to, for your son, you had to, step up for that. Just talk about those experiences for you and your advice.
You're asking questions that are stirring up all sorts of stuff inside. I think maybe I should say congratulations, but I can also say damn you. I was running Dury Vision for about 5 years, and during that entire time, Chris did have her brain tumor. And my answer to your question about how I dealt with that personally, I think people do this in very different ways depending on their personality. I compartmentalized. The most important thing that I could do was to make sure that when I was at Dury and I was dealing with the business and I was trying to create a culture that would win, and I would try to make sure that our folks took care of our patients and gave them great LASIK outcomes and eye surgery outcomes, and make sure that what was going on in our family's life or my personal life did not intrude onto that. This was hard, but so absolutely essential, because when I first started realizing that the negativity could creep in, I realized that has a chance to affect my job, my performance, and all the people and patients of Dairy Vision, and that's wrong and not fair. So what I did was I really became very good at compartmentalizing. We had relationships at home, we had personal life balance became even more important than ever, but so did parenting, as you said. And so what happened was I got better and better of separating work and home. The first 15, 20 years of my career, I didn't have to do that. I didn't do it very well, and I didn't care. In this period of time when Chris was clearly needing more and more help, and we were looking at caregiving as a very real thing for me, I got much better at it. And in fact, I was proud of the fact that I recognized it and attacked it before it took over.
I don't know if many people know this, but talk about, you were recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. How has that affected your role now as a caregiver for Chris, your wife?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. The last thing we needed was another problem piled up for us. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. The answer to your question about how that's affected us so far is not much. That's been my choice. I have very early onset of Parkinson's. I'm doing my meds, I'm doing my working out, and I'm trying to take care of myself, which is all I need to do. Well, it's what I need to do now. That is not affecting my caregiving role with Chris. Down the line, I talk about absorbing. We've absorbed the Parkinson's diagnosis for me and assessing, and we've assessed. And right now, I'm very fortunate to be at the early stages, and it might not even progress. You never can tell. Don't know. But then the adjusting actually hasn't been bad because these symptoms aren't bad at this point. We're okay. It's in my head that I have to pay attention to this because I'm thinking in 10, 15 years, what does my life look like? Not just for me. In fact, beyond me, what does my life look like as a caregiver? And can I still do what I need to do to help take care of Chris? Or we're going to have another plan. We have not gotten to the point of planning that yet because we don't know what it looks like. So what we're doing is we're in the assess stage almost every week. How's it looking? We're doing fine today. So no one needs to feel sorry for me. I've had a very full life. The Parkinson's is there. It affects me a little bit from a balance standpoint and a little soft tissue standpoint, but I'm fine. What I want to do is I want to make sure I take care of Chris because she's in need of having that caregiver and I'm not. So I don't need a caregiver yet. Maybe I won't ever. That'd be all right. But the combination of the brain tumor and Parkinson's just complicates things and almost as a humorous, God has a sense of humor program going on here. But don't bet against me to handle this well, Jeff, because I've been through the mill on this and had tough times come our way, and we're going to be okay.
Harry, any final thoughts or words of advice for the caregivers out there?
Yes, I'm going to come back to optimism. I have led my life prior to all this in a joyful way because it's my personality. I want to have fun. I want to compete. I want to win, but I want to do it in a way that's productive and that helps people around me, whether they're patients, people in my organization, friends, or family. That hasn't changed. If I had allowed that to pull down my mood so I'm not optimistic, I think I'd be a miserable wreck. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remain optimistic. I'm going to remain joyful. I'm going to support my wife as a caregiver in any way I can. And I'm going to take care of myself in the early stages of Parkinson's in the ways the doctor tell me I need to do. And then I'm not going to worry about Parkinson's. We're going to be okay. So I would say keep that optimistic viewpoint. Make sure it's realistic and grounded, but be optimistic because the joy that comes with that overwhelms almost anything else in a way that's very, very cool.
Harry, thank you for coming on the podcast. You're a gift to not only Kansas City people, but all over the country, spreading the message on how to be a better caregiver and helping them with that journey. And I know a lot of people are rooting for you and Chris. So thanks again for coming on the podcast.
You are very welcome. I want to thank you for giving me a forum to be able to talk about the issues our family's going through, how I dealt with it. So this is cathartic for me to be able to do this discussion. But I also realize, in a cool way, maybe I'm helping someone come up with a simpler way to think about the situation they're in and how to handle it and how to handle it differently. If that's the case, then I feel like I got to win from that standpoint also.
Thanks again, Harry. Have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to this special edition of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoyed the episode, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me weekly where I interview great leaders that share their career journey and their leadership wisdom.